What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Nice Catch Podcast. We're here to catch you up on all the latest football news and analysis. I'm Baden.
And I'm Hank. Today, we're recapping the NFL draft and talking about the UFL, as well as covering the other headlines. All right, let's kick it off talking about some headlines. It's not much. It's the summer, spring, whatever. After the NFL draft, you basically just have
a little dead zone.
Big dead zone.
Yeah, big dead zone.
Whatever.
4-month dead zone. May, June, July, August. Kind of.
I think we got a couple free agent signings. Nothing big, but let's start off with something a little controversial with the Guardian caps being allowed to be used in season.
All right.
So I wrote some stuff down what I think. I want to hear what you think about this, Baden.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, explain what Guardian caps are for people who don't know.
So Guardian caps are, if you've ever seen pictures or videos of the NFL during like practices and scrimmages, they're these big padded, I guess, helmets that go over your helmet, and it just makes it a little safer, keeps from concussions, head injuries. So in theory, it's a good idea. I will say that I think in the NFL, I highly doubt that anyone will do it because I just think they'll get made fun of. It doesn't look cool. It looks terrible. And I think a big thing in the NFL is, we just see with all the new uniforms dropping and everything, it just looks, you just want to look awesome. And the Guardian caps do not look awesome. So, maybe if they got like the logo on it or something, I would understand it a little more, but I just don't think they look good. So that's, I guess that doesn't really take into account player safety, which from that standpoint, I understand that, head injuries can be pretty devastating. So I understand it, but I don't see it happening once the real season starts. I think it'll be very rare that we see players wearing Guardian caps. So I don't disagree with it, but I don't know that we'll see it much.
Yeah.
Hank, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much with you there. I think that if they are allowed in season. I think if people start wearing it, they'll make Guardian caps with the logo, with the team colors. So it won't be that much of a difference. Well, okay, it will be a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
It won't be just like a colorless pad. I think they can make it look not as cool as a normal helmet, but they can make it look not just totally weird.
Yeah.
I think this is another thing that if the NFL keeps moving more and more towards player safety like they have been, which, there's a line somewhere. Everyone kind of has their own opinion where that line is, but it's something we'll get used to.
Yeah.
People, I think now think that targeting being outlawed in the NFL is a good thing.
Yes.
And 50 years ago, saying you can't, tackle or hit someone's helmet with the crown of your helmet would just have been insane.
Yeah. And I understand the Guardian caps more than personally the hip drop tackle.
Yeah.
Like I like that change more than I appreciate the hip drop tackle change.
I agree. I mean, there were a few injuries with that, and it's like, head injuries versus ankle injuries.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big difference
There's
there.
a very big difference there.
But yeah, the stats say that apparently they've reduced concussions during training camp by 50%. First of all, I'm like, who's getting a concussion during training camp? So I don't think that's the only reason. Like, just by wearing Guardian caps, we've reduced concussions by this much. But, I think they'll help. I think, I guess that's a good point what you brought up, that they do look weird. People are going to get made fun of if they wear those.
Yeah.
But probably in a few years, everyone's going to wear them, and we'll be used to it.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing I'll say, which not that I disagree or agree with this, but I just thought it was an interesting point that I saw, is that someone said that they should be mandatory for all high school and middle school, which I don't, that is kind of the same. In middle school and high school, you care even more about looking cool and stuff. I know my little brother Rocky would not appreciate having to wear a Guardian cap during games, but at that age of development and stuff, it does make sense to be a little bit more protective of the head and stuff, but I highly doubt that that'll end up happening for high school, because it's not like you're mandating only 32 teams. You have hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of teams that you're having to change the rules for. So I just thought I'd throw out that idea.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. I think it seems, at least to me, that innovation within NFL rules comes sometimes from the NFL. A lot of times it's come from, we've seen in recent years, things like the XFL, who aren't afraid to, let's change it up. But I feel like we hardly ever see innovation from high school and middle school because they just copy whatever the NFL does or what college football does. And so I think that could be a good idea. I think it would take a long time for that to actually happen because I don't think high schools are saying no hip drop tackles.
No. They just need their kids to tackle.
Yeah, exactly. Targeting is a foul in high school, though, so which is a good thing. I think let's move on. The biggest other headline.
Emphasis on big. Just kidding. Sorry.
Emphasis on washed. No. This kind of shows that there's not much going on right now. But we have a free agent signing. We have Ezekiel Elliott going back to the Dallas Cowboys. Woo! Okay, Baden, what do you think about that? I'll share my opinions later as a Cowboys fan.
I think that at the beginning of this postseason, when all the Cowboys management is sitting around the table, I don't think they had this in mind, personally. I think they waited too long. I think they didn't do it in the draft. And so I think, although Ezekiel Elliott, it will be fun, it'll be cool to have him back in Dallas. I think we were talking about this, I think, a couple weeks ago. Jersey sales. Definitely a Jerry Jones move. But I think him as your number one is probably not what you wanted at the beginning of this offseason. I think you waited too long. There weren't any other good options. You didn't get anyone in the draft for a number one. I just think that you didn't go all in. And you're stuck with this. Now, of course, this could end up being really cool. You never know. But I think that the Cowboys, I think they're going to have to do some real work before the season starts because it's not looking good. Definitely at running back, it's pretty questionable. Hank, what do you think?
Yeah, I like what you said. I think, he's definitely not the number one that he was. He hasn't been that guy since his rookie season. Saw a compilation of his rushing yards per game starting in 2016 when we drafted him 4th overall. And then, all the way to this year with the Patriots. And every single year, his rushing yards per game has gone down.
I didn't know that.
So last year, it was, I think, 35 rushing yards per game. So I couldn't imagine it going down from there. But we'll see.
Yeah, you never know. And the Patriots, their whole season last year was not good. So you really never know when he gets back with a hopefully competent team that you never know what could change. But it is definitely going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the Cowboys are bringing him back. Just for context, they signed him to a 1-year, $3 million deal. Derrick Henry, not saying Zeke is Derrick Henry. They were in the same draft. We should have drafted Derrick Henry. It's okay. Hindsight's 2020. Derrick Henry got signed 2 years, $16 million. So that's almost triple what Zeke is making per year.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't think they're bringing Zeke back to be an unquestioned number one.
No.
What it looks like, sorry, fantasy managers. I know this is like just such a horrible word to hear for fantasy managers, but it's going to be a committee, maybe even a 3-man committee. I think either no one's really going to lead, and it's going to be Zeke, Rico Dowdle, kind of splitting, about an equal workload, and then Deuce Vaughn, maybe Malik Davis, who's on the practice squad, who has put out a good showing in the preseason, and when the Cowboys are up big, I think he could be another good change of pace back. But or maybe Rico Dowdle will step it up. He did well last year, and who knows? Maybe he has more in him than people know. I think we've seen that a lot with running backs. They're the most surprising position, I would say. Mm-hmm. No one would have expected, Josh Jacobs to not do very well last year, and then Ty Chandler from Minnesota have like a over 100-yard rushing game during Christmas break.
Yeah, you never know what can happen, and that's what's just so cool about the NFL. But definitely the running back position, and it depends on your team, how you're running it, what your scheme is. Zeke could be a perfect third and 2 back, on the goal line, which is what we've seen at least I guess 2 years ago with Pollard and Zeke. That's what it was. Pollard would do all the work, 30-yard breakout run, get tackled at the 3-yard line. Zeke punches it in for the touchdown. Mm-hmm. So that we could see that, maybe. But I think, like you were saying, I don't think that they're getting him as this is our guy, this is our running back. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. They got 3 reasons for bringing Zeke back. They got goal line.
Boom.
They got 4th and 1.
All right.
They got jersey sales.
Oh, yeah.
And ticket sales, maybe. Although I don't think anyone's really going to buy tickets to watch.
Just Zeke.
Yeah. I mean, Cam Newton going back to the Panthers a few years ago, that was ticket sales.
Yeah.
Did not work out. He, had that one game where he had 10 snaps and 2 touchdowns.
Oh,
and then he had a 4.5 passer rating the next game.
We like it.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
But before we move on from Zeke, I have a extra large Zeke jersey sitting in my closet. I do not wear an extra large jersey. No way. So if anyone listening to this wants an extra large Zeke jersey, let me know.
Yep.
I'll sell it to you pretty cheap. Won't just give it to you though.
No, yeah. All right. We're not in this for free. Okay.
No.
All right.
You think podcast making is free?
Yeah. How do you think we're running this?
I think that's pretty much what we got with headlines. I think once we get into the season in the fall, headlines is going to be 90% of what we talk about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not 90%. Mostly headlines, lots of analysis of the games and division races. But what we got now, it's early May, late April, we had the draft.
Boom.
So I think before we get into specifics, takes on our favorites and things that we were surprised about, I think everyone knows one thing we were surprised about, who now is living in Atlanta. But before we get to that, you have any overall thoughts about the draft? I have a few things.
I think everyone was surprised by the 6 quarterbacks all going in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might start betting because my first 4, or at least first 3 draft picks that I talked about last time were pretty good. Not that, the first 4, kind of everybody had seen them coming. I'll say Jaden Daniels at 2. I kind of threw that out there. Yeah. But other than that, I think I really like it. I really like the first 4. Definitely. I was surprised by the Chargers taking a tackle. I think that, like Jim Harbaugh said, or Jim, John?
Jim? I think that one's Jim.
Jim, okay, thank you.
Why both J names?
I know, really. He said that our line is our weapons. It's like, okay, well,
this is the NFL.
This is the NFL, and you're not, unless you have all your linemen checking in as an eligible receiver every single play, that's really not what we consider a weapon. So I thought that was interesting, and then I guess we'll get to the bigger surprises later. But I will say that I think for a lot of teams, it was a good draft. I don't know that any team, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I don't know that any team had like just a breakout draft, like, saying this as a Texans fan, but you saw like CJ Stroud and then Will Anderson just back to back. Like, I don't know that I saw that big of a rookie impact any of these teams, but I think that a lot of teams they filled what they needed, and I think they all Well, I don't know about all Falcons, but I think a lot of them really filled some holes that they were missing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the biggest rookie impact, like we were talking about, probably the Bears, which is funny. The Bears had 5 draft picks, and a lot of people are saying they won the draft because they got Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, who it was a little strange to me them drafting a wide receiver. I guess they're just Keenan Allen's older. DJ Moore, I couldn't see them not wanting to re-sign him. And just, building the Avengers over there. But, one of their 4th round pick was a punter. And wow, drafting a kicker in the 4th round is a big reach. Drafting a punter at all is a reach in the 4th round when you're the Bears.
Yeah.
That was a surprise to me. But like what you said, 6 quarterbacks in the 1st round. Most quarterbacks in the 1st round since the all-time great 1983 class. I'll read off the names, and, well, you'll know half of these. Half of these you won't know. But, hey, that's the same with every class. You got John Elway.
Oh, yeah?
Tom Blackledge. Jim Kelly.
Okay.
Tony Eason. Ken O'Brien. And Dan Marino.
Okay.
And so you look at that. 3 of those made the Hall of Fame, and 4 of them reached the Super Bowl.
Hey.
But another part of 6 quarterbacks going in the top 12 is that in the whole rest of the draft, from pick 13 to pick 257, we had 5 quarterbacks. So this quarterback class was not very deep, but it was very top heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, with the Falcons, probably could have taken one of those last 5 and saved that other pick for something else.
Yeah. And a side note on just how crazy the extra year of eligibility and the transfer portal are for college football. Jaden Daniels, when he was at Arizona State, threw a touchdown to Brandon Ayuk over Lenore, plays for the 49ers, to beat the Oregon Ducks, who were quarterbacked by Justin Herbert, before anyone knew what the word COVID meant. And, extra crazy, Ricky Pearsall, 49ers first-round pick from Florida, so Ayuk's now teammate on the Niners, was on that Arizona State team.
Yeah.
So everything, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. So how old is Jaden Daniels? I need to look.
I think he's 23.
Okay, yeah.
I think he's 23 because Bo Nix is 24.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are my overall thoughts. Offensive players definitely dominated the first round.
Oh, yeah.
Defensive players dominated the second round. So,
and I saw a lot of O-line in the first round. A lot of O-line, which really important. Need that. So that's awesome. But that was one thing I noticed was just like pretty much offensive line I guess quarterbacks and then offensive line dominated that first round.
Yeah, wide receivers kind of going a few in the top 10 and then a lot in the last 4 or 5 picks. I like what you said, the Chargers taking a tackle. Their offensive line isn't great, but I mean, your number 1 and 2 option are going to be Joshua Palmer and Ladd McConkey, who I think Ladd McConkey is going to end up working out really well, especially with Justin Herbert as his quarterback. But I think if Malik Neighbors would have been a lot better than a Ladd McConkey.
Definitely.
We'll see. But
poor Malik Neighbors. He doesn't seem happy to be in New York. He's very respectful, but does not seem, I wouldn't say there's a big smile on his face in all his interviews that I've seen.
No. Whereas Xavier Worthy,
he pretty much had the perfect draft.
Yeah,
which I mean, it's a good pick. Down deep threat with the speed, and I mean, if the Chiefs need something, it's receivers. So I think that was a good pick, and I would be very happy if I was Xavier Worthy.
Yes.
Might not even have to play a snap, still get a ring. But he probably will. He definitely will.
Oh, he'll play a lot of snaps and get a couple rings, probably.
Yes, sadly. Well, not sadly, but sadly.
Yeah, whatever. Let's jump into what surprised us, and let's get the elephant, or let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's not get the elephant out of the room. That's not what people say. Michael Penix Jr.
Good for him. Actually, not good for him.
Not good for him.
So good for him in a sense that, oh yeah, you were drafted in the first round. Bad for him in a sense that you're sitting behind Kirk Cousins with a huge contract, and so it's not like something with take Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Thank you. This is the second time we forgot Justin Fields' name.
Sorry, Justin.
Yeah. But Justin Fields in a position, Russell Wilson is not going to play for 4 more years, at least not at the top of his game. You get to sit behind him. You get to learn, continue to develop. Then when Russell Wilson's out, and me personally, I'll give it 2 years tops. Yeah. You get to come in. You've got the experience. You've been behind a veteran quarterback. That's not the situation with Michael Penix. Mm-hmm. He's going to be, unless there's an injury, which also Michael Penix, he's also coming off an injury. So it's just interesting that you have 2 injury-prone quarterbacks, and one of them is going to be sitting for 4 years. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. I would understand if they signed Kirk Cousins to a one-year contract, 2-year, but no. Like, you have, is it guaranteed 4-year deal?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It just it's interesting, and so it does make you feel bad for Michael Penix in a way that he wants to play, and has the skill and the ability, but he's going to be sitting for much longer than any rookie quarterback wants to sit. First year makes sense. You learn, you develop, but if you're sitting for 4 years, I mean, even Jordan Love behind Aaron Rodgers, like he's playing really well, but that he was just really not enjoying those first couple of years. Yeah. So that's my take on it. But
yeah, I'm with you there. I think giving the Falcons a D overall for their draft grade may be a little harsh, because like what you said, Jordan Love, everyone ranked the Packers draft class that year as the very bottom of the NFL. And I don't think people would say that anymore. No. A lot of people think, Packers should have drafted a wide receiver that year. Maybe. But hey, Jordan Love, he's working out well. But yeah, like what you said, Kirk Cousins' contract is what makes this a very surprising pick for me, combined with Michael Penix's age. Jordan Love, when he got drafted, was younger. I don't remember what his exact age was. Michael Penix is older. Early in his career, he had 2 different ACL tears. Yeah. And then Kirk Cousins' contract, the specifics of it, you have 4 years, $180 million, and $100 million guaranteed. So let's say the Falcons decide Michael Penix is their guy and cut Kirk Cousins after this year. He will cost $40 million in dead cap money if you cut him after 1 year. So you're at least keeping him for 2 years. That would be, you saw what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson. Yeah. I don't think people want to do that with Kirk Cousins. They gave Russell Wilson 2 years. Give Kirk Cousins at least 2 years. And, this whole situation makes me wonder, what were the Falcons thinking? Did they know? You're not at number 8 and you see Michael Penix is still on the board. We are picking up this guy, best option. If it's a second round and he slid, makes sense. But at number 8, they have to have been planning this for weeks, if not months. And they knew probably that they were going to look at a quarterback in the draft. When they looked at Kirk Cousins, decided to sign him to all that. And so are they gaslighting the league? I don't understand what's going on here. It doesn't seem to be a situation where everything works out. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the video of the GM trying to explain the pick to I guess it was the owner, they don't even seem like he looked surprised. They don't seem like it makes sense either. So it's not like everyone else is looking at the Falcons like, what are you doing? But the Falcons are like, oh, just wait. The Falcons don't even know why they did that. or at least some of them don't know. So
it was a surprise to Kirk Cousins. He said it was worse than 28-3.
Yeah.
So as the newest member of the or one of the newest member of the Falcons, I don't think you pulled the 28-3 joke yet.
No, not quite yet. You gotta wait a little bit.
But yeah, we may look back on this in 3, 4, 5 years and go, man, wow, the Falcons knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I just
don't.
The Jordan Love situation seemed a little crazier at first. With this situation, you can look back on Aaron Rodgers and think, oh yeah, teams know what they're doing sitting a quarterback. But here, there just seemed to be a lot more negatives than there were in that situation.
Yeah.
And although I don't see Raheem Morris going into his first year and going, you know what we need? We need to just draft a quarterback at number 8 after we, sign Kirk Cousins to a $180 million deal. I think, your first year, you take some risks, not quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll make a note to go back on this in 3 years.
And yeah, when this podcast is blowing up and we're on ESPN, we'll look back at it and see what really happens.
The whole NFL world will look back on this
specific podcast.
I think another piece, you look at looking back now, you see what quarterbacks teams really valued. Apparently, Drake May was never in consideration for the Washington pick, number 2 overall.
Really?
Apparently, it was always, according to a report I saw by CBS Sports, it was always between Jaden Daniels and J.J. McCarthy. So they were considering McCarthy at 2. Patriots obviously wanted, they got Drake May.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like that was their guy, but they were willing to trade back. So it doesn't seem like he was
just,
they didn't see him as the obvious savior of their franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Raiders wanted Michael Penix. The Falcons got him. So and then the Vikings looked to trade up with the Patriots. And so did they want Drake May? Especially because I think it's his former offensive coordinator is now on the Vikings.
Yeah, that would have been good, I guess.
And then, but you get J.J. McCarthy at 10 overall, but trade up one spot. Trading up one spot with the Jets was really weird to me. I guess they just thought someone was going to try to jump ahead of them.
Okay, yeah. If maybe someone else had traded with the Jets and got
and
a quarterback.
Then you get Bo Nix at 12, and it really doesn't seem like anyone else had him that high except Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Payton likes those kind of quarterbacks. Maybe he'll work his Drew Brees magic on that guy.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think we talked about this last episode. Is just it makes sense. Sean Payton and Bo Nix, that just I think they'll work well together, and I think that could go really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the other piece is that the Giants apparently looked up. They offered their 6th overall pick and their 1st round pick for next year to the Patriots, and the Patriots said no. And the Vikings had an even bigger offer. So maybe the Patriots really did like Drake May.
Yeah.
But apparently the Giants did too. So I think if Patriots traded back and let someone else pick, and whoever traded up picked J.J. McCarthy, I think the Giants would have picked Drake May. They just didn't like McCarthy or Penix.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If they clearly had their eye on, if they were wanting to trade, they clearly had their eye on somebody specific. Because if you're just trying to make sure you get a quarterback, then instead of taking Malik Neighbors, you take J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or Michael Penix. So clearly they had somebody that they were really specifically, and by somebody it would have to be Drake May or I guess Jaden Daniels, that they specifically wanted. That is, I didn't know that. So that's interesting from the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I had them in my little green notebook. I had them taking a quarterback just because I felt like that's a hole that needed to be filled. I understand the receiver move because you also need a receiver. But yeah, I definitely expected them to maybe go quarterback. So it would make sense if they had their eye on Drake May and just didn't get it.
Yeah. I think the other thing, obviously you're watching that. I was watching the draft on, I think it was ESPN, and here Adam Schefter right before the Falcons pick going, so the Falcons are going to pick a quarterback. I think they're going to pick Michael Penix Jr. And going like, wait, what? Adam Schefter, whoa, slow down. The second thing that, really surprised me was the Bills trading back.
I was going to bring that up if you didn't.
Yeah. So they trade back with the Chiefs. Chiefs get Xavier Worthy. Then they trade back with the Panthers, who then select a wide receiver. So trading back, they must have gotten like an absolute haul of picks for that, right?
Oh, yeah.
No. And so what are your thoughts on that, Baden?
I completely don't understand anything that the Bills have done this whole offseason. Unless you're just secretly going bankrupt, you cut your whole team. You literally released your whole team. And so what do you need right now? You need really your entire secondary, and you need receivers, and running back. And this isn't really a great running back draft. So take that out. At this point, receiver is probably a bigger need than the secondary, although secondary is a huge need for the Bills right now. And it's not like there wasn't a good receiver in the draft. The two teams that you traded with took a good receiver. You have options, and you didn't really get anything out of it either. It doesn't make sense. I don't know if maybe they're just giving up and deciding to start rebuilding or something, or if they really are just don't have any money. I really don't know. It made no sense to me. Sometimes you can be like, okay, well, from this perspective, I can understand doing this. I don't understand. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the most confusing things to me. I think, I really tried to critically look at it from the big perspective, look at what the Bills GM said. And, there's a part of it that kind of makes sense to me after really looking at all that.
Okay.
So they trade back with the Chiefs, trade back with the Panthers, both of them select wide receivers. What do the Bills need? Wide receivers. So he said, it's not like we gave the wide receiver to the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
True, but the Chiefs are going to take a wide receiver. They're probably going to take Xavier Worthy. That's what at least I expected.
Yeah,
and so may have been a better move for the Bills to say, okay, we like this guy. We like Keon Coleman a little more.
Hey, I like Keon Coleman.
I do like Keon Coleman. I think Keon Coleman, his combine, his 40 time, hurt his draft stock.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather look at on the field speed. He has great hands, great contested catch skills, and I think his football skills will really work well with Josh Allen's arm and Josh Allen's playing style. So I actually like him going to the Bills. Maybe not as much as Xavier Worthy. I think Xavier Worthy with Josh Allen's arm would be amazing. I would have picked Keon Coleman over Xavier Leggett. I would have picked him over Ricky Pearsall. I like where he ended up. And so maybe the Bills just had their eye on him and knew the other teams didn't. But I think what the Bills were thinking is, okay, we have these 5 wide receivers all ranked about the same second round grade. So we don't want to waste this first round pick on a wide receiver that we know would be better second round. Sure, you only trade down 4 picks, but you pick up a little bit of extra with the trade, the picks you get, and really feel better about where you're selecting a wide receiver. And so if you look at it from that perspective, maybe it makes little sense. I know NFL GMs know a lot more about football than we do, and I've watched all of these guys play a lot more than we have. I mean, I think it's Dan Orlovsky, NFL analyst. Whenever he's scouting, he says he doesn't make opinions on people until he's watched every snap of their film.
He's got some time.
I don't think there's anyone, not the Dallas Cowboys even. No one on the Dallas Cowboys have I watched all of his film. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's dedication. But that's his job. That's what you're doing. Makes sense.
Another little surprise for me, Odunze. I think I already touched on this. So either he or Keenan Allen or DJ Moore will be the number 3 wide receiver on the Bears.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them really are going to be happy about being number 3, and I
No,
don't see
and
the
they
Bears
don't really-
trading any of them.
No, and they all can be to a level of a number 1. None of them are just clearly, yeah, that guy's a number 3 receiver, you know? And you really, if I was their defense, I would be a little worried. I don't know if worried is the right word, but I would be like, hey, all right, you got Caleb Williams, help him with that offense. Can we get a little bit of support for the defense? That would be my thought. But yeah, I understand, like you were saying, Keenan Allen, he's getting a little older. So maybe you're thinking him at number 3, but he's not a number 3 guy. A 1.5 at the lowest, I would say. He, look, last season, he was excellent. So it's definitely interesting. And I think, like you said, they know so much more than us, all right? We're just, and they've really, I'm sure, thought all this through to an extent that we can't really comprehend. But I would imagine that you would have wanted to maybe take a defensive player there. Probably I would think D-line, but I don't know.
Yeah.
The Bears, they got to do something. They've been bad for so long. Maybe they're just thinking, all right, we got to start scoring touchdowns. We got to just, but yeah, I don't know that I really love that pick at all.
Yeah. I would have picked the tackle from Penn State, who's Caleb Williams' high school teammate.
Oh.
And so Caleb Williams said he would love for him to be on that team. I think a tackle is a bigger need than a wide receiver at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive player is a bigger need than a wide receiver as well. I just like with the background with that tackle. That's who I would have picked. But
Hey,
well,
speaking of backgrounds, this is a little off topic, I guess. Well, not really.
yeah, go ahead.
Talking about the draft.
That's what podcasts are for.
Exactly. But Bo Nix and
Troy Franklin. Yes.
Franklin. I didn't know that story until we were watching the Liberty-Oregon game, which I don't know. It was a bowl game. I can't remember which bowl. It doesn't really matter which bowl it was. But they were playing, and they went and they showed that story during halftime or something. It's like, oh, wow, that's really cool that they were...
I was thinking you were saying they played in college and got drafted together. Is there more behind that?
Oh, yeah, no, they okay, so they were in high school. They went to high school together.
Okay.
And Bo Nix's family, so then they went to the same college, ended up at the same college, and sometime in between, I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Sometime in between high school and college, Bo Nix's family kind of, I don't know if it was official or if it was just they kind of adopted him into their family. What's his name?
Troy Franklin.
Troy Franklin. They kind of adopted him into the Nix family. So then they played in college together, and then so now they're going to be on the same NFL team, which is so cool. If I have that story right, all the way from high school up to college, being on the same team, and just literally being family at this point, whether it's legal or not. Like I said, I don't remember. But like that, I just think that's one of the coolest stories in the draft right now.
That is amazing. I was watching the draft in the 3rd round whenever the Broncos got Troy Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, great, I love that. I think 3rd round's a little low for him. Already has the chemistry with Bo Nix. But the fact that, they're almost literally brothers is amazing. I did not realize that. Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that. Great story.
Yeah, I'm as we continue to talk, I'm gonna check myself and make sure I gave you the correct information. Yeah. But I'm almost positive that was the little story that they talked about.
Wow, that's amazing. I think there's only before we move on to picks like that, our favorite picks. I just want to touch on the last few things that surprised me. Nothing was, a huge surprise, but you had Bears drafting a punter in the 4th round, like I mentioned already. And then you had Brock Bowers going to the Raiders after they draft Michael Mayer 35th overall last year. So, I don't know, maybe they're just trying to really like build on the run game, but they don't really have a caliber running back.
Yeah.
And so maybe they're just giving up on Michael Mayer already. I don't know. I don't think he's a guy you want to give up on after 1 year.
No.
But those were the only other things that surprised me. Nothing near as big as the Falcons pick, but just a couple things.
Yeah, and there's always some of those every draft. Not, like you said, maybe not as big as the Michael Penix pick, but there's always a couple things where you're like, okay, well, that was kind of out of nowhere. And sometimes they turn out, and sometimes they don't turn out. And sometimes the things that you're like, oh, that's a great pick, end up not working out. So I guess that's going to be the fun part when the season starts, is just to see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Who are your other favorite picks? We both talked about Troy Franklin. He was already right close to the top of my board before that story.
Yeah.
Man, with that story, he's
all the way at the top.
All the way at the top, man.
I just really, I really like him just for the story. And also, I think for the Broncos, it's going to be great because it's the same thing with, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It's when you have even C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell, I don't think they went to college together, but when they asked C.J. Stroud, like, is there somebody, he told him, I want Tank Dell. When you have that kind of chemistry, even when you're both rookies, you might not have the experience, all right, if I let this ball loose to Troy Franklin, he's going to catch it. He's going to do, there's just a certain connection that you feel. So I really like that combination. I would have liked Troy Franklin no matter what team he went to, but the fact that he is with Bo Nix, I think that's a great, great pick. I like Keon Coleman to the Bills, for the situation wise, also because he's just funny. Like, I guess in that situation, I like Keon Coleman, and then I think it was also a good pick. I think that's really awesome. I think that one that I talked about this a little bit last time, but Jaden Daniels, I think that's going to be a good switch up for the Commanders. I think they've kind of had the same kind of guy for a while now. So I think Jaden Daniels will switch it up, and I think that could be really good. Just the Washington Commanders are also in a place you got to do something different, And so I think that sets them up really good. I think they could have a good season this year.
I think one that we talked about Xavier Worthy, and man, that's going to be crazy to see the Chiefs go back to their.
It's going to be scary.
Yeah.
If you're against the Chiefs, it's going to be scary.
And then something that I think was in the 4th round, and so there wasn't a ton past second round that gets a lot of press. So I think another Chiefs draft pick, you get Jared Wiley, who is a tight end. Kelsey's getting old. I don't think he's going to retire while he's in the spotlight.
No.
He said he wants to play till the wheels fall off. Very Travis Kelce thing to do.
Fair enough.
But Jared Wiley, I think, could replace Travis Kelce. I think we've seen the Chiefs get, some good value in late draft picks. But this guy, I think they probably have in mind they want him to learn under Travis Kelce, someday take his place. He is 6'6", 250, and runs at 4.640.
That's good.
And he gets to be thrown to by Patrick Mahomes.
That makes anyone look good.
Anyone. Those were my favorite picks. You got Bo Nix. I think he's not a top 12 value, but I think Sean Payton will get a good value out of him, especially with Troy Franklin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, story-wise and just picks-wise, I think those are all cool. Or those are all definitely ones that I really like. Although I think with the Chiefs and the Bills, if Xavier Worthy catches a fourth quarter, bomb, ending the game, sending the Bills back home in the AFC Championship, it's going to be kind of funny.
Yeah,
Just considering the way that the draft went down and the trading and stuff. If Xavier Worthy ends the Bills season, as the Chiefs tend to do, it'll be a good laugh. Not saying I want that because
I want to see the Bills.
I want to see the Bills do
top.
well, and I like Josh Allen. I like the Bills. I want the Bills to win a Super Bowl. Maybe not this year, because the other thing is they're with the Texans, but same division or same conference. But I think it's just the Bills' story is so sad. Getting there, 4 years in a row and losing all of them. Not recently in the 90s, and then you finally are starting to get good again, and you just have the Chiefs, and the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and there's no way to get around that. So they're gonna have to, which is why I feel like if you're in that position, you got to go crazy this offseason and try and really hit it hard next season. And Keon Coleman's a great pick, but otherwise it hasn't really looked like they've been doing that.
The other piece of the Chiefs trading with the Bills, that's how they got Mahomes, was a pick from the Bills, and all of the picks the Chiefs gave them for that, I think number 10 overall pick, really haven't panned out.
Yeah.
So
and Mahomes was probably the best draft pick in the past since he's been the most successful draft pick since Brady.
And I mean, that's stuff that your GM can't control. You can't really control how well the people you pick do.
Yeah.
But man,
that is just funny for the Bills. It's real tough.
So overall, after we've talked about all this, I think, looking at overall who each team has drafted, I think the people with the best draft, we haven't even talked about this number one team that I have here.
Oh, okay.
But we have number one overall. We got the Eagles with their draft.
Yeah.
So I think, Cooper DeJean in the second round was a steal. Quinion Mitchell probably will be a star.
Yeah.
And, you touch up on other positions you need, but the secondary was not a strong suit last year after being...
Definitely lacking.
Yeah, and because 2 years ago, they were one of the top secondaries in the league. Last year, no.
And run game, definitely lacking. So, yeah, they've really filled some holes that they really needed to boost. So that is really good on their part. They completely slipped my mind as we were talking today.
And so, Eagles just had a really good overall draft. Got the, filled the holes they needed to. Number 2 overall, we've talked about this. I have the Chargers. Getting a tackle, maybe not the number one need. You get Joe Altlo, who is hard not to pass on, especially for Jim Harbaugh. And then you get Ladd McConkey, who I think, I don't remember exactly where he's drafted. Somewhere in the second round, I think. Definitely had a lot of value for where he was picked.
He was the first. He was the second pick in the second round.
Okay.
So pick 34. Yeah, Ladd McConkey to the Chargers.
I think he could be a very, very trusted target of Justin Herbert in a few years. And I know this doesn't mean anything, but my brother and I updated the rosters on Madden, and man, I scored at least 2 touchdowns in one game with Ladd McConkey. So I'm, I think that's a good pick. That just made me made me think about it more. And then number 3. We've got the Bears. I mean, they kind of had what the Texans had last year with 2 top 10 picks. The rest of their draft, they didn't really do anything. No. Getting a punter in the fourth round. Why?
There's just doesn't seem
maybe he'll be in the Hall of Fame in a few years.
First round definitely bode well for them. It's good.
You have any thoughts before we move on to a couple more things?
Just looking through this second round, I just love the name Kool-Aid McKinstry. That's just awesome. So,
and he went to
Saints.
Okay.
Cornerback to the Saints, which, good. The Saints really didn't do much. They weren't just really big in this draft. All good picks. Kool-Aid McKinstry. You got to pick him just for the name, but also he's an amazing corner. So that's a good pick. I didn't see what they did. What they do in the first round.
I think it was a defensive player, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think the Saints also had a a good draft filling the holes they needed to, but no, besides Kool-Aid, no picks that were
Just
a headline. I would have loved Kool-Aid to go to the Jets, partially because
sauce and
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid.
And the Jets I think could use another corner.
Okay.
But
sorry.
also, I would have loved Kool-Aid to go to a brightly colored team, like maybe the Dolphins, or you get like you're drinking blue Kool-Aid and like, this makes you think of Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Oh yeah, and then so with the new rule changes to the kick returns, that was one thing I was thinking about for Cooper DeJean. Dijon.
I think it's DeJean, but I don't know. I've heard people say DeJean too. So
he's a good returner.
Okay.
He's a good returner, and I think that's one thing that in this next season and this offseason and this draft, maybe that might be some things that we don't see now that'll make sense then. That people might be, all right, we're going to get this receiver, we're going to get this corner, we're going to have him return kicks. Because with the new rule changes and stuff, I think that a kick returner is going to be a more important player than he has been. So I think Cooper DeJean, maybe put him returning some kicks. DeJean, whatever. Cooper, have him return some kicks. I think that could be good because at least in college he was a really good returner, I think. So that could be something, obviously an amazing corner, but put him a returner. That's something that we might not see now that could really show up just based off the rule changes and stuff. So that was just one last thought I had. Just talking about the return game.
I think the whole Eagles return game is going to be really, their I don't know, returner position group is kind of stacked because they have Cooper DeJean. They drafted Anais Smith, who I was talking about last week. He was a great returner, and they have I don't know if he's still there. I would think he's on their practice squad at least. They got Devin Allen, Olympic sprinter.
Olympic sprinter. We love the sprinters.
And Hurdler. Okay.
Same thing.
I couldn't remember if it was sprinter or hurdler.
The hurdlers do sprint, I guess.
True. And so, maybe you got like a reverse in your kick return, punt return package.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Or at least a deep return position group. I think they all probably have slightly different return styles. And so he's just kind of a surprise who you put back there.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I wasn't thinking about Devon Allen. He's cool. Yeah. Anybody who can do two sports professionally, and especially when one of those is track, that's when you're cool.
Disqualified because you're too athletic.
Because when your reaction time. Let me tell you, as a track guy, when your reaction time is too good that you get disqualified, you've hit peak athleticism. As someone who literally leaves the blocks 3 seconds after they shoot the gun, I can give mad respect to Devon Allen.
Yeah. Last thing. Draft wise, let's start a tradition. Every podcast, we're doing a Super Bowl pick.
Super Bowl pick.
Well, maybe not during the summer because not that much is going to change.
Falcons.
But we got post-draft Super Bowl pick. Obviously, the draft doesn't change an entire franchise in 1 year, but it can give one team enough of a boost that puts them in contention, whereas beforehand we didn't see them there. So I don't remember what either of us said last week.
Me neither. I think I said 49ers and Texans just to be bold. For me, it's still going to be between the Texans and the Chiefs. And NFC, I'm going to stick with the 49ers.
Okay.
I think I don't think it changes much for me. I think 49ers and Texans. I got to go with them.
Yeah, I like that. Man, again, it's just hard to pick against the Chiefs, especially with Xavier Worthy. So nothing has made me question the Chiefs. So
yeah,
I'm gonna go with them for now. They'll probably take it all again, but
probably.
Well, we don't see a three-peat much or ever in the NFL, but so we'll say they lose this time, just to keep history going. But it's the NFC team that I see beating them. Man, for me, it's right between the Packers and the 49ers. Because the Packers, man, I don't see them going down this year.
No.
I see them continuing to build the chemistry. They got Edgerrin Cooper, great linebacker in the second round. And then the 49ers with a stacked receiving group. Obviously, there's the trade rumors around.
Yeah.
And even if they trade Ayuk or Deebo Samuel,
you still have one of the other guys. You still have either Ayuk or Deebo Samuel.
So I think it's going to be one of them. I think the Eagles made a big jump. I don't think they've made a jump back to Super Bowl.
Not quite yet.
Yeah, so we'll go Packers over Chiefs. I just realized in my notes I wrote Chiefs over Packers. I have changed my mind.
Yes, we're flying by the seat of our pants here.
Yeah. So last thing, let's talk about the UFL for a few minutes.
Oh yeah.
First, let's just talk about the unique rules they have. They got the PATs, they don't kick. They got going for 1, 2, or 3. One from the 2-yard line, 2 from the 5-yard line, 3 from the 10-yard line. I think it's a great ingenuity.
It's new, it's different, and I think you just commented on it a little bit earlier. Is they have the freedom to do that. They're not worried about fan bases. When we were talking about the head caps, the safety caps, is they have the freedom to do that. They're not worried about fan bases getting angry. They're not worried about, sticking to tradition. They're willing to change it up, do something different, switch up the game. And clearly, as we've seen this season for the NFL, the XFL or UFL now, has impacted the NFL with its willingness to change up the rules. So I think that's really cool. I think that it would be really tough to be a YouTube kicker that goes to a UFL team and then can't kick.
Breaks his neck,
yeah. But you also, not being able to actually kick PATs, which is kind of what you
didn't make you kick he only played 2 games, but your only opportunity is field goals. And your team actually did really well, so they didn't kick any field goals.
Exactly. But, the PATs, I think that's really cool. And it adds definitely a new element, and you're down 3, you got to go from the 10-yard line. That's a big I just think it's cool. I think it adds a new element and makes it fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, if there's 5 minutes left, or let's say 3 minutes left, and you're down 18, what you got to do is you got to go down and score, 3-point conversion, and then convert a 4th and 12 instead of an onside kick. I'll talk about that in a sec, and then go down, score, 3-point conversion. 4th and 12, I think the reasoning behind it is they look at the statistic, the percentage of onside kicks under the old rules that were recovered, and then look at like a play that would have the same percentage of, converted and not converted. And so they figured out that's 4th and 12. I think, one, it's a little counterintuitive that it's just a play. Like, I like the onside kick idea because it's, you kick off. This is just alternate kickoff. That's a weird way to say it.
Kick off.
But here, you just get the ball. I think that's a weird way to start it. And a 4th and 12, I say partially because I've been rooting for the Renegades, seems way too easy.
No, I guess, if you're thinking percentage-wise. But I understand what you're saying. I think it would be really funny if we saw a good team just do that for fun, and then just the other team's offense never touches the field.
That's the other part. You can only do it if you're down in the 4th quarter.
Oh, okay.
Which is, sure, it makes sense, for things, so they can't do things like that. But they realize that this is the percentage. We're not just going to let you do it.
Yeah.
And so that seems like they know that it's a little too easy.
I will say just some, I think from a UFL standpoint, you're not as big as the NFL. You know that people aren't necessarily, you have nowhere near the numbers of viewers and stuff that the NFL has. So I think you got to do everything you can to make it more exciting. Get the scores up. Have fourth quarter comebacks that people see on Instagram Reels, and they're like, "Oh wow, maybe I should watch a game." You get that kind of stuff. So
It's a good point.
it definitely
didn't think
is.
about that.
When you think about it being easier, I definitely understand that. But I will say, in the position the UFL is in, trying to build up, in the shadow of the NFL, I think doing everything you can for publicity and excitement. I definitely I can definitely see where they're coming from with the 4th and 12 rule. It is it's just kind of funny, just imagining being the other team, and I mean the Renegades, just the comeback, and I can definitely see it being really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think at the point that they're at, you're just doing stuff different. You're just trying to grow. You're trying to get publicity, make people excited to watch the UFL. Because if I'm the UFL, my goal in the next 5-10 years is, instead of it being like the NFL's over, but at least we can watch the UFL, is the NFL just ended. All right, now we have our second football season. Now let's watch the UFL. I think that's probably the goal within a certain amount of time, and you got to do a lot of work to make that happen. So that's where I come from on that specific rule change. It's just trying to boost the excitement, get people excited to come watch.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think about it. I guess from what the UFL is trying to do, does make a lot of sense. From a viewer standpoint, if your team gets a 4th and 12 converted on them, it's not fun.
It's not fun,
but
no.
True. From a if I was just watching a random game,
yeah,
I'd be like, maybe that was a little easy, but man, that was fun to watch.
Yeah, but if you're the Saints and Younghoe Koo gets 3 onside kicks in a row against you, but none of them actually end up counting, and then because Younghoe Koo is just like that, and then you still win by a big amount because the Falcons are terrible. But Younghoe Koo and onside kicks is almost as unstoppable as a 4th and 12.
Okay.
I'll just throw that out there. Younghoe Koo is awesome.
Yeah, onside kicks are always a fun play to watch, and the 4th and 12 just doesn't give me the same adrenaline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if we're looking at popularity, TV viewership seems to be doing pretty well for a league like this. But I think what at first makes the biggest difference, well, TV probably makes the biggest difference, but what gets people into it and what makes people feel connected to it is the individual fan bases.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of these fan bases, you look at St. Louis, who in the Battle Dome, I think is what they call it in St. Louis, they had more people there for one of their games than they had for a Beyonce concert a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'd rather go to a football game than a Beyonce concert. And then
Agreed.
DC's doing pretty well. You look at their beer snake tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's a fun thing. San Antonio, surprisingly, I mean, if you have a stadium like the Alamo Dome, but they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Birmingham and Michigan kind of hit or miss, but they both are getting a lot of fans. And then the 3 that I left out are not getting as many fans. But those markets actually seem to be doing really well. And then you give people a bandwagon team like the Birmingham Stallions, who have not lost a game I don't remember if they had not lost a game at all last year. I know they won the championship. But, yeah, I mean, seem kind of unstoppable.
Yeah, they're a powerhouse. And that's the one hard thing. Another we're building up a new league is that it's kind of early to have a Chiefs or a old Patriots, And so when you have a team that's just completely undefeated, I think that also might be some not encouragement, but some motivation to kind of switch up the rules, try and see if you can have some crazy games, some crazy comebacks, because you obviously, if you're building up a new franchise, you don't want to just have one team be, it's the beginning of the UFL season. All right, the Stallions are going to win, Mm-hmm. So that's what it looks like right now. Of course, football is football, whether it's middle school, high school, NFL. It's a football game, and anything can happen. So we could get into the championship and the Stallions could get beat 53-0. You know,
True.
that's unlikely, but it's 100% possible.
I mean, that's what happened to Florida State against Georgia.
Yeah.
Sorry, Florida State fans.
It is what happened. But they would have, Hank, they would have won the national championship, though.
Oh, of course.
They would have won the national
Georgia
championship.
or Florida State?
No.
Georgia would have.
Florida State.
Oh, Florida State,
Yeah,
obviously, yes.
They would have won the national
I mean,
championship.
I'm sure
Don't get it wrong.
having people opt out, having Jordan Travis get hurt, did hurt them. But man, I mean, Georgia
Just
I
wiped the floor.
okay. If you're listening to this and you're a Texas fan, I'm sorry. I think we agree now. Georgia should have been in there over Texas. I had been saying that since before they released the college football playoff rankings. And we look at what Georgia did, and we look at what Texas did. Sure, they almost beat Washington. They didn't, and then Washington lost pretty big to Michigan. Mm-hmm. If you put Georgia in there instead of Texas,
yeah,
it would be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Before we end, this is not just an NFL podcast. It's just easiest to talk about NFL during this part of the year. But hey, let's finish with the UFL. Yep, right. Football.
This is
UFL
closing moment.
Closing moment.
Championship picks.
Oh yeah.
UFL. What you got, Hank?
What I got. So I got the conference champions. Mm-hmm. So USFL championship. I think we'll get the Stallions beating the Panthers. Panthers have a good defense. Quarterback gets hurt, but they still have a pretty good offense. XFL championship. I do not think we'll see the repeating, the defending champs, Renegades there, because
they are 0-5,
and they should be like 3-2 if you've watched the games. But oh well. I think we'll have the Battlehawks beating the Brahmas. Brahmas surprisingly have a good offense, especially after their quarterback gets hurt, and their quarterback who was going to be their starter now is their starter. But man, I can't bet against AJ McCarron with that receiving core. But I think in the UFL championship, we'll see the Stallions beat the Battlehawks again. I don't know what the Stallions are doing, but man, something they're doing is working. Those are my thoughts.
All right.
You probably have a similar idea. It's hard to
it's with it's just not many teams, you know. I think definitely I would say Stallions and probably Battlehawks. Yeah. I mean I like the Brahmas. But I just think they have cool uniforms. Yellow for a football team is very bold.
It's bold, yeah.
It's very bold, and they do it good.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't have enough UFL knowledge to make a perfect pick, but I just think based off of what I'm looking at right here, Stallions and Battlehawks, and Stallions probably take it.
One last note before we finish on this is that the UFL has had a surprisingly large amount of quarterback injuries. You have 8 teams, and almost half of them have lost their starting quarterback. And so I don't know if there's something different going on there. Maybe quarterbacks are just running more often.
Yeah.
But, well, I guess 3 starting quarterbacks getting injured in the NFL wouldn't be a big deal at all, but it's just because of the ratio
there's
here.
There's not as many teams, still...
Well, hey, just a public service announcement. Watch the UFL if you aren't, because it's actually pretty entertaining, except when your team loses on a controversial 4th and 12. But hey,
you know what?
It's fun. It's definitely right now fills the void of the NFL. If you live close to one of the markets, games are pretty cheap, especially if you're close to one of the big markets like St. Louis. Man, that atmosphere. Got to be a lot of fun and a lot cheaper than an old St. Louis Rams game.
Oh, I'm sure. Thanks for listening to the Nice Catch Podcast.
If you love football, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and join us each episode for football news and analysis from the offseason all the way through the playoffs.
This is the Nice Catch Podcast.